Hello, Judge Napolitano, Your Honor. Fox News. And I forgot what else I put. But the point is, this is for the students of America and of Connecticut and of Weathersfield, intercities, though. With the schools are people that had involvements with breaking into homes and cars, also with falsified police reports and speaking fake things into databases with judges and prosecutors and former director of the FBI, and overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and with relevance to and as people who had roles and have roles that I don't know from my grammar school with who record as actually recorded where and how the FBI and police forms had roles with federal criminals before they got caught spreading lies and natures of identity theft, frauds, and slanders, which are relevant because we have to be able to speak. They also pretend that we speak bad about them when they brought this up. All exceptions to exception nature are in demonstration of the same thing. So they have criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and our means to discern this. So we have to use the identity of relativity of that which is actually simultaneously recorded. So we have offensively people who have been taught as abridged sciences have self-valued theories on relativity rather than actual relativity discernment. So we have value of being able to measure things, valued obfuscated, for example, because people are giving significance. So we have experts on the economy, for example, they leave out exceptions of exception nature that are where how our founding parents didn't even have. They're to hide their roles would actually counter extort the other founders and forced everyone to narratives other than were actual because the laws were what everyone could say. So they had to make fake narratives what made them pretend they were going to have the strength to fight about tax laws with the T tax. They're going to have the strength to actually will get behind the movements that were actually responsible for putting up Marbury versus Madison in the Constitution unabridged. So so they've been sequence shifting. So increasingly used remotely was where and how immunities from prosecution were and quote right to lie unquote. The right to lie is used criminally by the FBI. Now, this is also relevant to where black treatments and uses of the word black. See, white pupils and black pupils and whites of eyes. See, the sciences are abridged. They are theories that are juxtaposed with delusions and criminally foreign influence premises treatments. Increasingly self-valuing time treatments, always too fast, too slow, at all locations. Themselves self-valuing as having been self-value where the sciences being and having been abridged at ground locations. So this is where the principal child abusers campus. Before that was caught, I caught more. My town's police chief for years, since before he was a police chief. The same house/S is involved with it. With fire departments too, per them. Now these are people pretending passions and emotions at locations so they could keep using locations, areas, and states, interbranch locations, and all database locations, private. The same way they have the people going before the courts that they don't know the people, but they're kept needing hide the same sequence shifts with them, the self-value. The same self-value is relevant because this is where how relevant is where and how they're being and haven't been used remotely. Now, these are also people from Russia and Ukraine and from all these other countries involved with the people on office, Connecticut State Judicial Branch offices, criminally foreign influence, involved with criminally foreign influence readings of statutes regarding who can't be sued, regarding Facebook, what is typed on it, how it is responded to. So they have the people. It's not just Facebook. They have some doctors who are involved with drugs and medicines crimes with little kids through time. Ones with badges, involved with houses near me, involved with some wire crimes and mail crimes. And now Attorney DiMauro called the police years ago regarding a Joe DiMauro and a Heather Hansen and other people from Central Connecticut State University in New Britain that have been involved with live progressions from people that went to my grammar school, and some mayors involved. There's a former mayor of Gold involved. They've been painting kids to arrays in responses relative. See, identity of relativity. We're going to take this out of theory and keep science real. We're going to clear the delusions. We need to do this. See, but they're hiding my words from you, Fox News, but with your own. And Judge Napolitano, with your own people that are the stewards of your Facebook page, people that are stewards of the database information. They're lying to you. They're keeping self-valued, and they're not used remotely. Time shipments used simultaneously, too fast, too slow, at all locations, formal. So what do? They come down. You know, if everyone was prepared for war, they wouldn't be throwing cocktails, Molotov cocktails, as reported in other words. They wouldn't be throwing nuclear weapons. They wouldn't be throwing missiles. They wouldn't be self-valuing since before our founders were born, before cars were even invented. The suburbs design, tactically denatured base, still overtly multi-front against the colonists and against the Native Americans, sickly distinctly against each Native American individually grouped in together to keep out sickly non-distinctly from being discerned. Then makes it even harder to discern now is with colonists as Americans, and everyone's American, and Native American. No president/chief. See, it's still incompatible because they're all systems tactical ulterior from the one that causes, from the volume science, when appreciated, where how we are human volume science, actually. The science that really tells us how to know what's really going to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures. And one can't pretend, if one really understands American history and honesty, in other words, you can't tell and understand, pretend American history has even been told because they've left out the exception nature about why and how the industry began and stayed. Self-valued, criminally foreign influence. In other words, systems tactical other than what could defend themselves and afford defenses, fact, treatment, nature-wise, quality of logic-wise, quality of to counter that breaching method which had entrenched those crazy laws and database relationships tied to people A through Z. No matter, and so in other words, now they had to respond syntactically, and the law was they had to respond as individuals, as differences, to keep the difference of the law, to keep every word's difference abridged, and then what? Self-value. Well, that's how it is. So increasingly self-valuing than having been. So this new. So I don't know. There's a Debbie Gold who was the daughter of a former mayor Gold. I had nothing to do with her, and she pretended other. And then years after that, her father pretended other with Joe Aiello, who I didn't even know who he was until I was in high school. And the only instances I know him from, he was real fast. It was him involved planting evidences with people involved with federal crimes with kids as judges, prosecutors, people that work for prisons and overt criminal enterprises and private ones, people involved with uses of the corners of buildings in schools to plant evidences, make confessions from strangers, and then pretend they're not strangers when someone needs to demonstrate this. So there are people on off the state judicial branch offices involved with Joshua Stryker and Eric Oliveri. Eric Oliveri, I barely know. I only know him in context where his my name was used with him. God knows what they said, and his username was used with me. But he will confirm he was involved with men and women, criminally foreign influence, a whole bunch of ways, differentially and constantly. Their fault or not, and that is having been used remotely though, where it is constantly everyone getting involved with other people's business dishonestly and offensively. So they have this child abuse method. They even have sexual rights. People, in other words, if people are being mean to someone and they're calling them the name, say they're calling the faggot or whatever like that. If then they should respond to the they're making people respond to in other words, there's a reason they had that saying, sticks and stones may hurt my bones, but words will never hurt me. Which is not. See, they make us understate things or make analogies or metaphors that are incomplete, incapable of using and staying the science, valuing the science of proper. There are 5 distinct identities of sequence / simultaneous nature. And when they are not simultaneously positive to themselves, then we are we are valuing criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments and negative treatments, which are simultaneously identity treatments. Identity has relativity to positive and negative simultaneously. So we could discern how the identity of the value, the identity of relationship to itself, the value of the identity the value of the identity of relationship to itself that the simultaneous has. For example, what is slavery? One has to say what was simultaneous. Witch trials. What else was simultaneous? Acceptation, positive nature. Oh, that's business. Leaving out exceptions, exception nature. That's not business. It's slavery of everyone. So, but everyone either tries to, ignore things. So the breaching method was the responsibility of it, and was maintaining it. It was measuring and maintaining A through Z, people A through Z, blaming other things, others, ourselves. Increasingly as identities, tactical terrier from identities, because that's that which they are as human volume science actual course. Why actually we are individual as an identity of volume / S grouped in species volume, species body volume simultaneously. 3 distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneously bound identities of the same singular volume. And so there on Yale, on the website of Yale, they have a picture of Jesus Christ with a halo. And there is an A on the left side of his head, and there is a W on the right side, not because that's my name, my initials. Alpha, alphabet. W, wall. See cell body, cell nucleus, cell wall. As you see how the walls come together, the body of value discernment, and what is positive or negative to itself. And the science of this is about what is simultaneously because this is the science of what is physics, metaphysics, and identity, where and how they are bound the same way. This is the Trinity is a tool of science revealed by pantheism slash hyper-pantheism before sciences became criminally foreign influenced. This is what is actually recorded most practical to convict, and or more practical and more probable to convict than what is offensively being convicted, and how and opined and theorized regarding what caused slavery, regarding, in other words, and then people need to defend their arguments. So they're handed things like racism. And remember, the whole time, I mean, no one's even watching the whole time, had nothing to do with color, or if they're Native American or colonists, or, you know what I'm saying? This is tactically denatured identity of the grounds, identity of relationship to itself, which is reliant upon us, not just valuing the means, the might and power of ourselves united on a plan capable of adapting that means, not just united. See, in other words, it's what is bound by it, a united individual by it, independent, simultaneously. Caring about that it's a contemplation that is tactical ulterior from these plots. So there are needs scientifically to discern 5 distinct identities of criminal insidiousness, and to conceive what is also already manifest. Precedence over interstates, national, and war crimes. Precedence over that, because of the people. In other words, they have sanctions or war. Or those crazy, the crazy, and the people defending this have collusion at medical locations. So Wethersfield, Joe DiMauro has roles with some gun crimes with a Tony DiMauro, recorded by the police themselves. But now he's one of the Wethersfield police. More than one Joe DiMauros. They were also involved with the Heather Hansen with wire crimes and mail crimes in the past, breaking into my house, smashing my window. See, he tricked me. They had, in other words, I barely know the Tony DiMauro. One time when I first met him, and it was tied to his roles with a 5th grade teacher I had, who was involved with people I don't know all the names of at Central Connecticut State University, leading up to the World Trade Center attack. In that context and sense, with relevant, confessions, because they're all the confessions are not whether they're who's lying about it or not. It's just it's the point that's the context it was in. In other words, it shows that and how there are police forms with badges that are also doctors involved with drugs and medicines, and with the crimes that the motivations that have nothing to do with that. And so they value all the ways it has to do with that. And they have roles with all kinds of things with each age of fact, treatment nature, relevant to where and how there are all these countries shared here and there on and off the campuses of each age and nature, where they had collusion with acts intercities time, where they're using wire crime acts and methods with the children's campuses. So Fox News has been making treatments about school boards and what they do individually grouped and together. For example, everyone's been doing this. All the networks, everyone, because everyone. They've been blaming others. They've been making descriptions of people's words, or they've been attaching them to fake words, to fake locations, relevant to where and how actually the stream of people going into the courts with negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures really kept them needing to increasingly self-value this being and having been. That and how collusion at those locations with witch trials and treatments of black, when they speak about, when anyone speaks about Jim Crow laws, we have to be able to discern the breaching method being and having been blamed on other things, others, ourselves. Then those arguments needing to defend themselves. So we have to understand the relevance of where and how being the revelations of the short words that our founders left us to teach actually how slavery was valued wasn't by our founding parents. They had to hide the rules with that. I mean, they had to hide the rules with countering that. And the causes of that and roles with it entrenched were roles as slaves. Colonizations, kings and queens, pharaohs, emperors, no matter how powerful an individual could get, if you're over locations, areas, and states that are criminally foreign influenced and being self-valuing that because that's the part of what's being used haven't been used remotely. Self-value towards the hyper-invisible, towards the invisible, but still discernible. So they value, they've been setting up exceptions. They've been motivations within roles with instances, uses of all the instances that come before them. Everyone. Exactly that way. Blame other things, others, themselves. Uses of names where people, this is also a method. The people involved with the World Trade Center attack on our side are people that are involved with a crime method where they use other people's names. So, and they tell you about them, and you don't know who the people are. And these are people that are measuring and maintaining self-value, our own for their own reasons, how the sciences are abridged, how time treatments are used simultaneously, too fast, too slow. Then they're going to make then we're going to have a test on this little part of English, this little part of math. They're going to leave out what comes right before that. And what's all along with that, there's a little game. So they have words like bullying and things like that because they don't allow the rules to be followed. Because if the rules are followed, there's an identity that answers our questions better than a calculator can calculate. It is functional, distinctly from how calculators work. But then also non-distinctly exactly how calculator works, its description of its identity of relationship to itself answers that better than that, while as it fitting that. In other words, these are the five. There are a cell is three identity: cell, nucleus, cell, body, cell wall. One of the things they are commonly is a forever nature. Only the extent of it is debatable. Another thing they are commonly, non-distinctly, distinctly is a sequence nature. They are simultaneously a simultaneous nature. Why do I put nature behind the words? Because this is the science of discernment of natures, of hypernatures, identity of relationship to itself, and to discern the hyper-invisible but still discernible. What's really going to cause positive or negative value nature progressions, acts and natures. Evolution's fruits and gifts and means out of nowhere. And this is especially where we are fact-driven nature. So uses of the name of our countries and of ourselves, and of our locations, areas, and states, and of the sciences. Everyone has been stayed victim predators A through Z. Otherwise, they attach us to fake words, fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to other people. So there's a Tony DiMauro called the police years ago, and right after Joe DiMauro broke a window, I didn't know it was him yet. He said on the phone after it was him, and they made the police come because I pulled out a gun because someone broke the window and we were about to leave. We were supposed to leave. It was the only reason. In other words, the only reason I felt for that is because like a year before that, or a couple of years. In other words, I had met a girlfriend through him. She doesn't even know. I don't know him. I mean, and he was involved with people from my grammar school, with the executive branch, and the political branch, criminally foreign influence. And I found out now it's relevant because it wouldn't then, distinctly, non-distinctly, it's involved with people with other cities' locations. And rather than having to speak about that, I should and use other people's names. See, they want and need me to use their names because they use mine first. They make falsified police reports since I was a kid. They had roles with the men and women who are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed through little kids pretending passions and emotions with overt criminal enterprises in private one's time. I just remind. So then they have little kids. Then they have to go hide the roles of judges and prosecutors. And when that's not the case, it's also in political families. And all the other databases, when that's not the case, it's the overt criminal enterprises, and the private ones originally still self-valued. The names that work for them, individually grouped and together, styles of logic kept needing to hide from and hurt. Logic using short words and revelations properly. Nature as it is being told properly. Nature is relevant to what is positive and negative simultaneously. Just because language is the same way language is about the visible / hyper invisible and its identity of relationship to itself and the value of that. All the parts of English grammar have a semi-nature relationship to the identity of value progression it is, with that semi-nature as a complete nature. And just like our entire species body, every single person at the same time, if we agree to be systems, if we all agree, the same acts, there's the same systems, tactile terrier, from its identity of value / value progression system, then it's going to keep demonstrating. It's going to Earth's distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous / hyper-simultaneous relationship to the rest of space nature. It is force from here as hyper-simultaneous that is negative to itself, that which will only increase the identity's positive relationship to itself, where it is a relationship to itself, positive and negative simultaneously, where we are value progression, we are quality of diffusion. So you know how there are distinct identities of definitions to words. In other words, I don't mean diffusion. In other words, I mean, and then there's that identity, they all are at the same time. So I mean, this diffuses as the definition of, diffuse a bomb. These are us people involved with making bombs. The people involved with planting evidences with judges and police when they were kids, who are involved at campuses then and now. There are people from Trinity College involved with the Joshua Striker and with locations next to the state judicial branch offices, who've been influenced to timed uses of my name, make confessions and demonstrations to me. So one of the things they have involvements with is a detective Dylan and Anna Dillon, and a partner of his I don't know the name of, and two speech class teachers I don't remember the names of, and I had a personal conversation with either of them. Those are one of the ones involved with people from Central Connecticut State University and Glastonbury and other cities involved with the intelligence community, criminally foreign influence, and involved with medical families, and involved with drugs and medicines, crimes against kids, and uses of that to maintain uses of locations, criminally foreign influence. So that's, in other words, there is worse than criminal incompetence regarding the threats actually upon us that we know because of good journalism. I'm not a journalist. See, but good journalism is prevented even the campuses they go to. There are victim reactions to all that, the crime methods of all the people. Like Central Connecticut State University has a whole bunch of men and women who know and simultaneously don't know various ways, but they have roles with the FBI and CIA and with judges and courts and their family members and prosecutors and their family members. There have been self-valuing roles stacking with identity thefts and frauds instances and falsified police reports, and where and how hearsay crimes and crime methods in courts are also increasingly self-valuing roles with, way worse than hearsay, slander, an identity theft, fraud, slander method against everyone at all locations, areas, and states, relevant to where and how we let the punks with narratives behind the building of and or the counters to inclusion of nuclear weapons, for example, their inclusion with each other and their delusions rot at the same time. And they don't even know what that means. So they think we're calling them a name. And they also pretend we're calling them names relevant to the sequence shifts. So there are sequence shifts that were proven. Post-dated documents have been presented to the panel of judges in the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center attack, next to the World Trade Center towers, right before they were taken out. And this is New York City, which is simultaneously overtly / insidiously never having been liberated, quote, at last, unquote. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It is used by the breaching method to measure and maintain our own, incapable of speaking for the science of white or black, why we have black pupils, why we have whites of eyes. Only we're all human. Yeah, but let's go by the science of it. So this requires a quality of fact-checking nature. So this also has something to do with the locations next to the campuses, next to Hartford Hospital. A whole bunch of people involved with the DiMauro family, and at both ends of Elliott Street in Hartford are people involved criminally foreign influence, differentially with a whole bunch of Koreans. With nothing against you guys, Korea. This is where we have a little bunch of fakes here and there. Otherwise, we're not. They're not. They're in other words, that's all we're allowed to have. Because the tactical, really how we are bound, individually grouped and together. Again, we are now bound tactical ulterior from this. And that is measured and maintained by a breaching method that came from before the sophistication of modern nations. While in Ukraine and in America and in Russia, the suburbs are still, since before cars, they were involved with that slavery torture method with witch trials, with uses of black in the law, uses of Native American. This is a breaching method against everyone, everyone for everyone, both how they are for each other, both how they are against everyone, is defenses of logic that can't defend itself and afford logic proper, treatments of identity proper, treatment of truth and the answers proper, uses of exceptions, exception nature proper. So, in other words, but how would you do things without economics? We do things better than free when we do when we admit this quality of fact, human nature, quality of fact, human nature science. This is volume science, no theory. We're going by those 5 identities of sequence. So the value of sequence true before the order of the finite now is increasingly valued. And is increasingly valued that can't be valued by the people that are pretending to be the stewards of knowledge. They're using knowledge to get over on correlation nature's actually inherent active and progressive means. They're increasingly self-valuing how, because the kids of New York City aren't experts in math, they pretend, they deny. In other words, what they call prejudice is a physical delusion sometimes. In other words, with the uses of black by the law formally. Everyone A through Z is right to be livid about that. See, but no, everyone's livid dishonestly because the people knew that we would have to be livid about such things. So they fit only discerned. Collusion with those people also with where and how the jobs at the campuses, they come through. We have to deal with each age of campuses. There are colleges and universities that had predicate acts roles. At the same time, the principal child abuser was with the upskirt nature's roles with others still too. Other methods and uses of the pictures of little kids and on Facebook too. See, where they don't have the right to lie, where they have criminally foreign influence readings of statutes, where the lawyers were originally and still criminally foreign influence delusions wrought with the 3 branches of government, witch trials and slavery simultaneously, Jim Crow laws to measure and maintain that not told, and that's self-valued. And so they can't tell about what Jim Crow laws is. To understand what Jim Crow laws is, we have to understand how they blamed other things, others ourselves, for where and how our founding parents had to hide their roles with the counter extortion of our other founding parents, how everyone had to fear God. For anyone trying to speak about trying to use short words and logic honest and true. And not unless as used as a lie, a truth for a lie, for the breaching method. That's what they were telling everyone to do. Use truths for lies for this breaching method. And just blame all the things other themselves. When you have to respond. Where these are people forcing communications offensively to offensively posit roles, evidence reception, data reception, sequence value reception, simultaneous value reception. So to understand how to counter that criminal insidiousness propagation method, we have to discern the predicate acts delivery system method. We have to discern how the predicate is named the predicate and demonstration of an identity of relationship to itself, the person who delivers a predicate act against someone like wire crime, mail crime roles, identity theft, fraud roles in the form of falsified police reports, in the form of torture roles. Now, these are prisons, families, and their campuses that are also criminally involved with the same people. How many people are tied by, they bring themselves, we know this person. They tell, this person speaks gobbledygook. because they know people aren't going to, people make opinions into things because they have to keep going forward with their lives. So the police have been using like punk delusional punks with guns though, and so they have roles with some of their patients and criminals too. Further on my street, and roles with untimely death at Trinity College with some people on my street and tied to them. It's got nothing to do with the people on my street. It's involved with this Kevin Dillon and these cops using my name with lying to me, lying about me, and lying about instances, and lying about other people on my street to me and to others. So we have some fakes, your honors, and you fakes, Wethersfield Police Department. Make sure you get on paper. They've been forging and switching names. So I have police chief years ago, and one for many years, a police chief Cintron. I don't even know Jessica Cintron. Jessica Cintron and the police chief and a bunch of people tied to her and her family members. They're involved with the Mazzucato Bakery. Has a Reno Mazzucato who sought me out to confess, demonstrate, confirm, and record. Involved with a Wells Road and with a campus there, on campus off there. I don't know the name of the campus. And then there's a Justo Klavinskis, and his brother is one of the ones involved with this Joshua Stryker, and with identity thefts and frauds instances. Now him, I barely know. The Joshua Stryker, I walked by him one time at a party. We had no communications. They had little pit bulls walking around. And in other words, they were planting evidences, making confessions. So, and then they had something to do. They were planting it with people on off the state judicial branch office with houses next to it. Has something to do with how they have a Dean Alford at Trinity College, spreading lies behind my back to girls. And those same girls have girls that were reportedly involved with being raped by the Wethersfield police when they were little girls. Then they want to pretend like they're all, I know him from high school. This girl used to walk up to me at a corner when I was coming around the school and plant evidences that way. Make statements to me, pretend, in other words, try to qualify things that are true that weren't true. Now she did this, not like the Debbie Gold, but it was tied to it. Where people involved with the Debbie Gold were involved with the former Mayor Gold was involved with people and that are also involved with the principal child abusers campus, proven that had more then and now I caught. And they have the kids of the principal child abusers forced to roles with it because it has nothing to do with sexual, even though they have sexual crimes with kids. Has nothing to do with drugs, even though they have drugs, crimes, and motivations apparent and recorded with the kids. And faking relationships to kids as doctors. It's a whole bunch of people at Trinity College involved with Joshua Stryker and Eric Oliveri and Joe Aiello, who are also on with spots next to those campuses through time, involved with various natures of federal crimes with men and women that hurt little boys and girls, including sexual women, and this how they were motivated to do that because everyone's speaking through others and they're being lied to. New Britain Superior Court, I knew they have a black and white female judges that were lied to, but they're all also lying to themselves and to others and with delusions. In other words, I'm sure as victims, but as victim predators because they have no integrity, and that should have been, that we're obligated to demonstrate that. For example, in other words, that's not legislating from the bench. What is actually simultaneously recorded? Statutes have been self-valued criminally foreign influence. So there are Wethersfield police. Before they were police, they were involved with breaking into home. There are proofs that they broke into my home when we were in court too. A whole bunch of falsified police reports tied to this through time. Intercities, the same people come with ties to the same houses on my street and tied to them in the area, involved with predicate acts on the campuses I went to, and on Facebook. I believe it was on YouTube. There's a Phil Clo who's already first one. He's one of the ones brought up by Bob Chase and people involved with forensics locations. Also with the Joshua Julian, who was involved with the Joshua Striker, with Facebook crimes with police, on off Trinity College, on off the principal sex offenders campus, with principal child abuser, I should say, because other natures of child abuse simultaneously. Now they have rules with where and how they're getting kids jobs, and those kids are being, they have narratives, positive, negative treatments, identity treatment, title treatment, location treatments, sequence treatments. They're using those kids as collusion with what they're making live progressions and backgrounds with the databases. They even have like young kids teaching kids from the younger grades. Because of how they're keeping a vertical and horizontal, they're keeping motivations all juxtaposed, sick ones. So they keep, this is also relevant to the reception of, data reception, studies, research. That is all kept criminally foreign influence to keep, specifically to use remotely defenses of it. All this is relevant to where and how you guys prevent simple words from being used. And then you describe, your Facebook page is stewards, prevent. And, the judges have complaints, because there were other judges too I brought into this after but sequentially, you're being lied to first. See, they're making everyone self-value this, rolls with this identity theft fraud method. Also have kids, in other words, they make me use the people, others' names. I love everybody, and like everyone wants to speak for that science that cares about everyone. If they try to do it, and before they even try to do it, there are people involved with this identity theft fraud method. They already invested themselves. So there were federal criminals that co-defendants of former director of the FBI in a 2006 district court case who had kids and themselves also involved criminally with the ones who went to my grammar school, who are involved with identity thefts and frauds at other campuses with them too. These are remote uses of people that went to private schools and public schools involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, method that is relevant to where and how, sickly, non-distinctly, people A through Z, colonists A through Z, Native American A through Z first. Then additionally, while colonists A through Z, being packed on that, and they're made to fight each other while now this is on there. They had to respond as syntax nature. They had to respond as nature because as identity. Everything is an identity of volume. Everything is an identity / hyper identity, because everything is a semi-nature relationship to that value of that identity of hyper-simultaneous that is really going to cause positive or negative value nature progressions, acts and natures. So where and how the economy had to begin criminally foreign influenced, and where and how we have to use that phrase, criminal foreign influences. The breaching method knew that the countries A through Z would no longer be the sophistication capable of defending their attacks on sophistication and of affording defenses to themselves, even at any location, area, and state. From the breaching method, the predicate acts delivery system method. This made Native Americans hurt Native Americans. This made colonists hurt colonists and Native Americans, the people that, it was even worse. Differentially, because what makes it even worse differentially is how volume science is humanity's actual volume science is prevented, denied. So they want and need us to lock. In other words, there are people that have justified economic value treatments that cannot defend themselves as integrity without self-valuing at all locations. For example, the phenomenon no one realized. All these identities where people have voices and podiums, where they can say things. They're hiding no, there is no place to tell on things while there are people offensively telling on others criminally. We have little tattletales that are criminally foreign influence since they were kids. Identity theft, fraud, slander roles. And it's relevant to where and how they have agreements with that they call peaceful that they never had. In other words, they have psychologists and psychiatry involved with Russian doctors who have badges with guns and military that are criminally foreign influence uses of Harvard Hospital leading up to the World Trade Center attack, leading up to the war in Afghanistan. They had roles with all kinds of natures of federal crimes on off Wethersfield Police Department, Wethersfield town offices, library with Afghanistan families, victim predators, little fake punks that are going to speak for them. Chief Citron can't speak for America. Chief Citron's involved with fabricating, with identity thefts and frauds, falsified police reports, guns crimes. I don't even know all the names of them. A whole bunch of people tied to a Dr. Dingleberry and Dr. Dewberry involved with federal crimes with the lawyers of Harvard Hospital too, of the hospitals and stuff like that. They're criminally foreign influence. They're fabricating audio and video a whole bunch of ways, distinctly too. There's remote uses of differentially, increasingly. So differentially, and when it is discernible, but in the increasing part, that's all being used remotely. They've been using locations. They've been using locations next to schools. They have their patients and criminals run in to hide the same life progression, sequence shifts when they're caught with their little crackpot fake little tattletales that are fabricating fake things. They painted themselves into corners when they were kids. And then little kids will think, okay, this school's, in other words, everyone's victim. You blame other things, others themselves. That with that breaching method, that formerly was responsible for its side of being used, having been used remotely, but not by England, and where and how their exceptions, exception nature and demonstration, that it was in demonstration the same thing. All those little colonists, all those colonies, in other words, countries A through Z are already since some ancient times self-valued, having been individuals grouped and together, tactile terrier from how we are by nature, and where and how we have an identity of relationship to itself that's going to cause a positive value, nature, progressions, action, evolution, fruits and gifts, means out of nowhere. And so they made fake exceptions of how to cause, they denatured the ground. They made it cause negative value, nature, progressions, action, natures, and they made roles with themselves while mass victim predators needed to make positive value, nature, progressions provided through it. The thing making the negative value, nature, progressions. So it maintained a self-value and identity, and an identity semi-nature relationship to nature's identity, where it's the cause of negative value, nature, progression, as negative value, nature, progression, as criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments and of negative treatments simultaneously. And so of identity treatment simultaneously. And so of the value of title treatment simultaneously. And so of the value of locations, voicings through us. The finite, the order of the finite is no longer voiced through us. To what we can afford to do in Ukraine last chance to fix humanity. And in Russia, in America, same trap in the suburbs, let alone the urban. All designed for the syntax response is to blame other things, others, ourselves. The real cause of New York City is overtly enslaved and tortured by a breaching method that effectively measures and maintains them through our own, blaming other things, others, ourselves. Where and how, why, no one cares about them. Oh, we care. They want to use the truth for lies. If they cared about them, they would admit that. That's what everyone wants to admit. Humanity wants to admit that. Humanity has the space and means to open up like that, better than free. Hey! So we just need to have mandated. I don't mean to be yell at you, Your Honor. Fox News, please, you guys, you guys a whole bunch of identities. Oh, but that's the time. That's why mandated law says when someone reports something, in other words, make sure you get me a response for the people, the Wethersfield police that have been switching names with the police chief. Now they're also involved with FBI criminally, a whole bunch of people and overt criminal enterprises. There's a John DiMauro who's also involved with overt criminal enterprises. I barely know him. He sought me out when I was in middle school. He to beg me to smoke marijuana with him, and made all these confessions about his roles with other people's names he used with me. I don't even know their names, but he obviously used my name. I don't know with people. There was a Nick Sweet and a Delaferro family. They're involved with some judges and prosecutors, involved with drugs crimes with kids, other natures of crime, gambling with the kids, wire crimes with the kids, mail crime. They use Heather Hansen for that. It has something to do with the intelligence community with Central Connecticut State University. There's a Christopher Cullen, Chris Walters, who also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. There's a Pandol family involved with his family. People on all sides of the high school were involved with judges and prosecutors, and as people with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and foreign and domestic military. Kept needing to hide the same sequence shift, final act of progressive life, timed remote uses of themselves. I don't even know, but there's a victim predator since he was a kid by the people running with the kids, using the kids, pretending passions, emotions as the care for the kids, especially ones with no fathers and stuff like that. They hurt them. The same ones are helping them. But we make them a success. You use them as a little rap mob tool for yourselves, little identity theft, fraud, slanders with people at Central Connecticut State University that have through time and been involved with private schools of little kids, with public schools in collusion with a crime method where they're stacking fake things into databases, and where that's relevant to where and how they've been using parks remotely. There are a whole bunch of people tied to a former Mayor Gold who's been pretending to know me as complete strangers and people I barely know. And the only contacts I know them in were real brief, and they can't be honest about it because they were criminally involved with the use of the locations. In other words, only avoid the people. I do avoid those people. These are people I didn't seek out in my life. These are people that the reason they get away with this is the people are involved with the crime method of bringing things before courts and before cops that switch names, forge names, little fake punks with emotions and passions. They lie about, they lie about it because they have a gun. And where they tell you to not speak, where they tell you to speak, the lawyers are nuts too. So we have to have mandated law follow. I need a response from Wethersfield Schools now, Your Honor. Please. Let's get a response. Now, but first of all, I want to know what they said I said, because they hid what I said and fabricated audio and video to hide it. And fake emails. They use NBC Connecticut News. They're all NBC Connecticut News, other news are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, also with the corner of Church Street and Main Street in Old Wethersfield, which is right between points toward, in other words, houses on that street involved with the narratives on my street, with the names involved, that has extended family members and people involved with the Wethersfield and as Wethersfield police, who answer the phones for them. These are little kids and their parents that went with the had communications with the little nutbag detectives and stuff when they were kids, when planting evidences. One of the guys brought in he said he has a family involved with the corner of Fairlane and Carriage Hill Drive. And then years later, Jamie Smith confessed that involvements with that. It's also involved with the uses of the identity ground locations, like at the shopping centers. It's like on off Town Line Drive, has something to do a whole bunch of ways with the people involved, with connections between the people involved that I don't know that were went out of their way to pretend other, and with the courts and police forms of prosecutors criminally involved, and with overt criminal enterprises, and with sexual circles, as the people that were in touch with me to fake ties and natures of ties to themselves and others at Trinity College with this Joshua Stryker, and with the dean switching names, and on Facebook. So please have a Dean Alford clarify and tell me what Joshua Stryker said to him, because he's a little fake. He doesn't know me. He wasn't even in my grade. And he's involved with some girl that was also at Trinity College who was involved with, in other words, they were involved leading up to a 2006 district court case. In that case, and since, involved with federal crimes with the co-defendants with those federal criminals since before they got caught. As roles in the only instance I know her in. I don't even know that girl's name. I don't remember her name. I've lost my book. I wrote it written. But in other words, so that's how they do. They get people to speak through others. There's a Christopher Cullen also too. I only know him in the context he recorded. What is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. He was involved with the people of criminally foreign influence and with judges and prosecutors that have been planting fabricated audio and video. Now these are people involved with guns crimes and threats against me, and with their patients and criminals too. Some doctors who pretended conversations with me. One guy told me, the Dr. Dingleberry too. He pretended had some guys go behind him. He said, we're gonna strap you down and put some chemical into you if you don't sign this piece of paper. And I still haven't got a response for this, because I don't know. He doesn't even know me. I never had a conversation with him. And to do that, he had a kid flip out on me, one of the ones involved with my neighbors, at Hartford Hospital. No, I was trying. Finally, I saw a guy I was gonna communicate with. He was black. I don't know his name. He was a doctor, a nice man. And so I was telling him, I knew this kid was I never had a conversation with him. I recognized him from the Wethersfield town offices. See, the Wethersfield police have roles with Afghanistan families through in the 90s. And with the Wethersfield town offices, with a Smith family of police foreman who answered the phone for the Wethersfield police, which used to be in the Wethersfield town offices. Now, these are also Judge Smith I had to write a complaint against with New Britain Superior Court, which is also the court still involved with the rape threats and other federal crimes from before the World Trade Center attack, and then even on Facebook after. And then since they have been preventing me and others from telling about what the courts affected confessions to me and others from through time. Their corruption did, and the FBI and Wethersfield police. So the Wethersfield police chief has roles with Mazzucato Bakery and a Sandra Spada and Antonetta Spada, and they have two other sisters, and they have a brother, Joe Spada. I never met brother Joe Spada. I met one other sister one other time, and mother, I never had a verbal conversation with in my life. And there are some police that lives near them, and they have boyfriends that are involved with people at the buildings next to Fox Connecticut News in downtown Hartford, next to the state judicial branch offices and next to the state capitol. They have some kind of identity theft fraud scams where they time it, and they keep making fake instances, and they keep, these are little liars calling other people liars. They're involved with identity thefts and frauds. So there's a Stephen Stockwell also involved with wire crimes with some police from Central Connecticut State University. These are also people involved with election crime acts and methods at election locations and religious locations. And then their uses of them pretending passions and emotions. They won't follow mandated law on Facebook, and they won't respond. They just block people because the police forms have been using the Facebook for federal crimes, and not distinctly and simultaneously with the judges and prosecutors, and all of them have been kept with worse than just overt criminal enterprises, plural, and the private ones originally and still relevant to where and how such serious, critical topics like slavery are still having been denied. They're simple means to be. So we have to plow through this by everything. Everyone has self-value knowledge. The most knowledge of American history haven't been used to get over on what is actually recorded in American history. Our founders did not have free speech, and they were forced. They were counter-extorted to seek means to find that free speech or to fail. All hail the failure and means to pretend not by hiding, narratives tied to all nuclear weapons. Well, titles, hierarchy. People on a mass scale, people are only defend they defend the integrity of people that don't even know, and that gets away with it. In other words, like because of the police. Oh, you're saying something bad about the police. We should know by now. Originally, still, it's not police, criminal. You know how many criminals they claimed were criminals were innocent, even innocent people they set up, and even the criminal. They have little kids. They have these little games through the kids where they have the people involved with the natures of federal crimes and blaming on other things, others themselves, hiding what really transpired, and uses of that, because the uses of it locked them needing to get involved and care about what happens with little kids. Our most sophisticated agencies, not a pseudo-sophisticated, criminal insidious natures of sophistication are all that have been standing. So we need to take the little elements and bricks and things like that, instead of packing it away and we're going to fund another block building. We build an identity of the grounds, identity of relationship to itself that is native pure and has a footing that is capable of being native, hyper native pure. That means it's trying to make sure that footing is going to cause positive value, nature, progressions, acts, nature, or it's going to be able to adapt. We have to be led by nature itself. What's under the ground? The water's there. Why? If we lift water, we can spread it around. We can make energy out of nowhere. We can make more energy with the water coming down. Save needs to use energy. And it makes the ground's identity of relationship to itself capable of revealing evolution's fruits and gifts. We are on a tactically denatured, since worse than colonization, breaching method, foundation, since some ancient times. So, what is your name? Intellective says, are you schizophrenic? See, there are people in Ukraine, in Russia, in America who have mental diagnoses, who are some doctors. I caught attaching little kids to and their family members and myself. They attach to fake conversations at Hartford Hospital. Now these are police forms with other hospitals that attach me to fake locations and ties to themselves too. They've been these are little some doctors I caught with a child sex offender principal and more then and now that is still yet been proven. So they have you guys on online. That's one of the way they force child abuses, and it's sustained. It's also because of where and how the public schools and private schools are being and haven't been used. There are police associated with the investigations of reports of it that cover use the investigations of it to cover it up and criminally say, oh, well, this has been investigated. So they have people, in other words, I'll delineate your delusions from your criminally influenced premises treatment if you're a doctor, whatever your name is. Intellectual. I don't know how you spell it. It's not a real name. But that's serious. That's serious thing. We're talking about these are people also involved with the World Trade Center attack contacts, interstates from Connecticut as the ones involved with the principal child abuser. And they've been lying to the judges with themselves though, and with prosecutors. So they've been using and their narratives are also being and haven't been employed to hide the real motivations of the breaching method, which is uses of them through others too, like the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. There's a guy who looks just like James Comey too, who's one of the guys involved at New Britain Superior Court with FBI and with Hartford courts involved with FBI. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants in their depositions are also involved with Hartford courts and the Britain Superior Court with West Hartford locations through time, involved with identity thefts and frauds, and all along the Brooklyn Turnpike. And they recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, has something to do with the corner of Town Line Drive and Southstein Highway. So military. This is to me. That's why I meant to put in the title. I forgot to put it in the title. There are three boyfriends of one of the sisters, of a whole bunch of sisters. They also had one of their boyfriends. In other words, they colluded with one of their boyfriends. They all collude together too against the girls, and with the girls that they shared, and the mother. In other words, and I don't know, the father's got a place in Newington, and so they're involved with Eric Jensen has been fabricating audio and video with state police, and with Wethersfield Police, and with Newington Police, and with federal and people associated with the FBI, and with overt criminal enterprises, and with private ones, and with people along Hangdog Lane where it runs into Two Route Highway, and the Burlington Turnpike has something to do with their roles all along Route 3 and on off the state judicial branch offices with falsified police reports, planting wire crime acts roles, methods, including when they call themselves the police on themselves, and how they adapted from that. Has something to do with what's his name? A teacher I had, Mr. Neville, whatever. Mr. Neville has involved with people with the state judicial branch offices. I don't know, and with other teachers from my schools had roles with the judicial branch offices, and that was being measured and maintained. They were using their sense and sensibilities because they've been lying to them, locking them into uses. They have also uses of the Facebook pages. They have more roles with the pictures of the kids and the pictures of their own kids they have involved on Facebook. Then they took it down too. There's the daughter. There's kids of Brendan Leahy and his father, Brendan Leahy, who attached me to fake conversations with themselves, with himself, and other doctors did it too. I had no conversation with them in my life. They pretended to hold detailed fake conversation with me about legal cases and about my father. The first time they brought me to Harvard Hospital, I saw their faces. In other words, I saw a guy who looked like it would be the father of the other one, and they said it was a Brendan, two different Brendan Leahy's on there, and they forged the name of Dr. Shamsi Ali. So they have people that work in triages who have roles with drugs and medicines, crimes with their patients and criminals, and with the courts, and with the prisons, and with the campuses that train them. So they have people that are involved with sociology also, and like studies and things like that at locations where they've been using that to hide life progressions and to pretend motivations. And even on Facebook, they have this recorded. They have people like Jamie Carone, a Mark Carone, and a Kevin Carone are involved with state police and federal agencies and Wethersfield police and their family members through time, including doctors, including ones of the various departments have been individually grouped together, criminally foreign influence. And that's nothing personal, people. You guys, they also pretend people are saying that others are bad because they relevant to where and how they attach everyone to fake words, fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to other people on a mass scale. And increasingly, intercampus is connected vertically and horizontally. And that means even preemptively, while the other people are needing to highlight progressions back downward. In other words, relevant to where and how everyone makes positive and negative treatments that are simultaneously identity treatments, title treatments, ground value distinct details, value discernments, increasingly denied by fake ones, increasingly in place of that, criminally foreign influenced ones. One cannot teach about American history properly, about the details about it individually grouped together without using the phrase criminal foreign influences, without using phrases like criminal insidiousness. So we're going to take American history not back. We're going to relieve it. In other words, it was never free. Not one has seed. CT must break to find the seed, break fake branches stand to fall. In other words, anyone who pretends that hurts their feelings should be taken down right then because they're criminally incompetent. They should admit this and get down from there. Make sure that I get a response, please. Your Honor, I was speaking about not to you all the time. I'm speaking about, in other words, I want to know the response for this principal child abusers campus. They prevent people from responding with simple sentences to simple sentences like threats. In other words, police have been making rape threats and demonstrating that they've been planting slanders and fake things on campuses as their roles with people, with federal criminals and with the interbranch in cases, criminally foreign influence together. And with that insidiousness from people A through Z with their opinion natures regarding such, blaming other things, others themselves. They're not breaching method for what caused those things, witch trials. What caused, even if they made up witch trials, the breaching method caused it. Even, in other words, the breaching method caused Jim Crow laws. That revolution has not been won. A revolutionary war was won to become one of these other syntactical fakes as countries A through Z. So all we have to do is admit this, and then you can get relief. Then you can get a quality of fact-sheeping nature, where leaders will have to respond other, or they will have to be painted other. That's, in other words, forget the other ways. They never did anything. Look at it. They have nuclear weapons can fly to space still since before cars. The suburbs are tactically denatured. Of course, you can't admit what is overt about New York City, people. Not you guys. Not you, Your Honor. Not you guys at Fox News. Please respond, Fox News, to mandated law. I've been asking you a long time. Respond for the Facebook page stewards, too, who deny this. Get them on paper, the FBI. Oh, we're done. We're done with them pretending they had integrity. Hey, let's get them on. Let's get them.